Okay, in this video, what we're going to do is take a few minutes and look at comments. Now, comments, the compiler could care less about. That's right, comments aren't valid lines of code that do some sort of calculation. No computations taking place there. Comments are for us, the developers, or for anyone that may come in behind us that needs to read our code. Comments are so important, and we're not using them all over the place ourselves because as we're presenting this course, we're simply trying to get in and show you the meat of these different programs and concepts as we're working our way through it.
That and the fact that we're talking and explaining all the while we're doing it.
Yeah, you guys are getting some of the coolest comments ever. Audio comments. But comments are really important. So when you guys begin writing your own programs, please use comments. Why are they important? Well, simple. You may be working on a method that performs some sort of really complicated computation. And let's say you save your program, you go away for the weekend, you come back on Monday, you sit back down and you look at that method and you think, whoa, look at all this crazy math because I'm having to do all of this advanced 3D calculation, right? And you may not remember what exactly it was you were doing, and now you're going to have to sit down and work through your own code to figure it out. Well, if you would have left a comment that said, you know, you're transforming the matrix and you're doing this and shifting that, and oh yeah, that's right, and then you could just keep going. So you didn't lose any time. Or here's a better example. What if you're working in a team of developers? Okay, well, if you're working with a team and someone else needs to take some of your code and implement it into some of their code, and you have left no comments for them, now they're going to have to go line by line and read through your code to see what your methods are doing. Oh, that's no fun. You don't want anyone to end up in a situation like that. So leaving comments behind is critical as far as I'm concerned. So even while you're creating very simple applications while going through this course, start leaving comments. Get into the habit of leaving comments. Now we have three kinds of comments that we'd like to talk about. We've got the single line comment, the multi-line comment, and the XML documentation comment. So with that out of the way, let's just jump over here to the whiteboard real quick and show you what they look like. Starting out with a single line comment, all we have to do is 2 forward slashes. So 2 forward slashes and then whatever we want after it. So single line. Let's finish that word. There we go. Comment. Now the single line comment, basically what happens is when the compiler sees these 2 forward slashes, it ignores every single thing after the 2 forward slashes all the way to the end of the line. Once it hits the end of the line, then it goes out of ignore mode, the next line begins, and it starts paying attention to what code has been written. So single line comments are very helpful when you need to drop a quick comment in a line by itself or at the end of code that already exists on a line. Logan, let's show them what we're talking about. We'll hop back over into Visual Studio, and we've got Hyperion open, so we'll pick on it. Let's add a single line that stands all by itself.
All right.
Now, when he puts these 2 forward slashes down, for my beginners that's watching this video, the 2 forward slashes need to be together. No spaces between them. So it's forward slash, forward slash. Then you can add all the spaces you want because the compiler will ignore every single piece of text after this all the way to the end of the line. You'll also note that our comments come in a green flavor, letting us know quickly that this is indeed a comment. Now here Logan has done a single line comment. He can hit enter and throw in another one real quick, which he can just start with 2 forward slashes again because again the compiler starts paying attention again when we begin that new line. Okay, very good. Now, what else is handy with single line comments is coming in after some code. So let's take that right there and add in a single line comment here. So here you go. He's leaving a note behind for himself or for some other programmer that may come in here later that says show the title screen, and that is what this line of code is doing. Again, it's just comments for you or for someone else that might be reading your code. The important thing to note right here is that when coming in here, what's going on? Basically, we got to the very end right here. We started 2 forward slashes. The compiler just ignores everything that came after it until the new line began. So everything's nice and cool. Notice how I pointed out we got to the very end. That's very important because what if Logan started his multi-line comments before the very end, which is indicated by the terminator? Let's demonstrate that flaw. There you, ooh, that's good. So 2 slashes right here to throw some sort of, now type hello in there. Now you think maybe 2 more slashes and you can jump out of it. No, remember, the way the single line comment works is the compiler ignores every single thing until the end of the line. It doesn't start paying attention again until we get on the next line. So you cannot put comments in the middle of your code like this. It simply will not work. Single line comments are very powerful. It's a convenient way to jump in quickly and leave a single line remark. Let's go ahead and clean this back up a little bit. So we'll take that out, and that becomes valid again. That's a single line comment. Now, let's jump back over to the whiteboard and take a look at multi-line comments. So coming back in here, a multi-line comment begins with a / immediately followed by an asterisk. This starts a multi-line comment. What does that mean? That means the compiler goes into ignore mode until it sees the opposite, an asterisk, and then the /. So everything in between is ignored. Now in this case, what did I just do? I simulated a single line comment. But since it is a multi-line comment, I could do / asterisk, then jump down to the next line, comments, 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 and then finally, notice how I am using formatting here. And then let's end it all off with an asterisk and a /. And then the compiler comes out of ignore mode and starts reading the very next character that is going to show up. Now, we can use this for dropping in entire blocks of text. That, again, is a comment for us, the programmer coming in, reading what we're doing later. Or we can also use it to drop notes into lines of code as well. Logan, let's go ahead and jump back over once again to Visual Studio, and let's demonstrate this. So first, a simple multi-line. Start it. And as you hit Enter, Visual Studio is going to put an asterisk down just to kind of help visually denote that this is indeed a multi-line comment. So he's just going to put a few of these lines in, and another line, and now let's go ahead and close it off. There you go. So there is a multi-line comment. So we go in there, and we don't have to have all those asterisks in. As a matter of fact, take them out real quick, Logan.
Matter of fact, let me just format it this closer to the way I really would. Should be something like that.
And the way I work is I always indent mine. I mean, it all comes down to the person. Even though it's green, you can quickly tell. Every programmer has their own style. But again, this is multi-line. Now let's go ahead and do another multi-line comment right up underneath that. But let's keep it all on a single line.
Okay. So we'll begin the comment. So say...
Here's some stuff.
Yeah.
Haha, you got to make sure the symbols are in the right order. That was a great demonstration of what happens if you don't put them in the right order. It continues going, just ignoring. So, which brings us up to a very valid point we need to talk about in just a second, and that is nesting multi-line comments. So here's an example of using multi-line comments to really give you multi-lines, and here's an example of giving you a single line using it, and let's show why that might be useful. Find some sort of method that we call on, and put a comment in the method.
So you want to do this right in the middle, maybe the process command, or right before it?
Yeah, that looks good. There you go. This does not disrupt the way this line is processed because, once again, what's going to happen is the compiler is going to come in here, it's going to see this, go into ignore mode, come out of ignore mode, and then this is the argument that's being passed off to the process command method. Simple enough. Now, is this good practice? No, I would not recommend doing this personally because this is going to make your code a lot more convoluted because now you've got comments mixed in with lines. I would recommend doing stuff like this. This here is very helpful. This, on the other hand, not so helpful. But you know what, Logan? While demonstrating how we can mix code into an actual method, there is a way that it can be helpful. Go ahead and delete that out for me real quick and jump over to where our word wrap is.
Jump over to text utils where we have our word wrap method.
Okay, now what I want you to do for me is come right over here and go ahead and hit enter and then just, remember we talked about formatting earlier with white space, move that over. Now check this out, guys. We can come in here and use some single line comments here and then jump down up underneath it. So we are putting a single line comment into a single line or programming line here, yeah, single statement.
And it doesn't disrupt our parameters because the parameter continues on the next line when the line means that ends the single line comment.
Exactly. So if Logan wanted, he could come up after the second parameter and on the next line and add another single line. And so there we've just broke our parameters apart and we put some notes into here about what those parameters were for. Okay, so with that, Logan, let's go ahead and undo all that. We don't want to leave that. in place. There we go. All right, simple enough. Now, I mentioned nesting a second ago. Let's go ahead and jump back over to the whiteboard and show what's happening with nesting and why we don't want to do it. So, as I said, with the multi-line comment, the way it works is you start it with a / and an asterisk. So the compiler begins ignoring things, and let's say for whatever reason you're going to do another multi-line. Perhaps this multi-line start right here was really far up off your screen and you didn't notice for whatever crazy reason. Or let's say you had a multi-line comment already in place, and then you needed to block out a whole range of code that had the multi-line in it, so you went all the way to the top and you started it. Here you may have some problems, and here's why. So let's go ahead and close this one, and then close the whole thing. So now, we see this one, we being the compiler, it goes into ignore mode, ignoring, 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 ignoring. Aha! Now we come out of comment mode. So all of this right here is legally commented, not a problem. What is this? This is just sitting there and is now a problem. This is why you cannot go in and nest multi-line comments. So please keep that in mind. Okay? Now there's one more type of comment that I would like to just show you. This one actually can get deep, and we could spend a lot of time with it because there's a lot of different tags that we can use. We're going to make it as quick as possible, though. This is the XML documentation comment. Very, very powerful, and it is just basically // And then we have a lot of predefined tags that we can use to embed information. This is a way for us to get into IntelliSense and add comments that are going to show up there. As we've been working through, as a matter of fact, Logan, to demonstrate, let's just jump back over real quick and pick on the console, anywhere in there where we might be using a console write line.
I was actually going to pick on the variable itself.
I was going to show one already set up, a predefined one. So here you've got...
Let's jump up a little and just say console dot...
Oh, there you go. Look at this. So IntelliSense, we got this tooltip pop up down there, the yellow box, that's got a lot of information in there. That's handy. That is a comment. That is an XML documentation comment. So if Logan, let's say Logan does write line, so go ahead and do an open parentheses now. And then let's see what we get next. Look at this. More information. So now we've got writes the current line terminator to the standard output stream. Beautiful. Lots of information. We have the ability to document our own methods and fields, etc. So, Logan, you want to go ahead and show some of this?
Sure. And historically, that tooltip has generally been something that's just built into the language or the IDE that you're using. With the advent of XML comments, you can go in and actually interface with IntelliSense and add that information yourself so that your own code will start to pick up useful hints like that. So let's pick on this quit variable that we have back in program for a moment.
Okay.
And let's say that we wanted to have quit documented in such a way that if we were to use quit elsewhere in code, we would get a hint as to what it does. I could begin an XML comment by typing 3 /. And you'll notice that the moment I hit the third, because we have the automatic XML commenting option turned on in Visual Studio, which it defaults to on by default, you see it drops in the rest of the XML comments and throws in a summary tag.
Yeah, we get a framework put in place for us.
Now here's the thing though, the reason it threw all this automatic information in was because it could identify something on the following line. It could identify quit as a variable, so it knew we could in fact comment that. If I were to attempt a multi-line comment without something following it, like let's say if I go to the very end of program and I try to start one, it doesn't give me anything.
Right.
Granted, it is a valid comment, as in if I started typing, or I could leave them alone.
You could just look at them like this. Instead of thinking of them as XML, we got // so there's a single line comment. Now we just go into ignore mode.
Right. Though technically they're valid as comments, but they're invalid as XML comments because they're not complete.
Precisely.
And there's nothing that it has to document after that.
All right, so let's go ahead and make this XML documentation comment work for the quit field.
Okay. So it has already dropped in the summary tags, so I could write in a summary for quit. We could do something simple like use this to exit the game.
And then go change, yep, that's 2. All right, excellent. Now, where does this show up? How is this helpful for us? Well, here Logan's jumped over to the command processor class, and there's quit, so look at this. Aha, he puts his mouse over it. Bool, program.quit. Use this to exit the game. So there's that documentation now popping up in an IntelliSense. And when he goes through here and he's using IntelliSense, He's about to select quit, and we can see in the pop-up over here what quit is going to do for us. Use this to exit the game. Good stuff. Now let's pick on something else, like a method.
Right. Yeah, let's do something a little more advanced. Let me jump back into text utils. So let's pick on word wrap again.
Word wrap's beautiful because we take in 2 parameters.
So if I were to begin an XML comment, so 3 forward slashes, see, not only do we get a summary tag now, but we get 2 param tags and a return. So this was actually a really good one to show because we have a return in here as well because we're returning a string.
Mm-hmm.
So let's fill some of these out and see what they would look like from outside of word wrap now. For the summary, just something simple again like wraps text on whole words. And then for the parameter text, that is the text to be wrapped. And then buffer width is width of the screen buffer. Now returns and say
returns the wrapped string. Returns the wrapped text. All right, very cool. Now, let's go somewhere and actually make a call to that.
Okay. Matter of fact, let's jump all the way back out to program since this is where we were testing everything.
Okay.
And let's call on text utils and tell it to word wrap. Now already see we have the documentation for what word wrap does itself.
So wraps text on whole words, so he types this in. Now look at this. So right now, the first parameter is bold, so string text, and look at that, below, text. Text to be wrapped. So we now know this is the text we're about to send to get wrapped. And then look at this, as he does comma and goes over to the next argument. Now the buffer width is bold, and below it says width of the screen buffer. Very handy. And with XML documentation comments, they're very powerful. There are a lot of tags. As a matter of fact, we're not going to get into them all, Logan, but if you could start one and just show them by opening one of the lesson symbol.
Actually, let me grab something that it can open upon. Let me jump into the summary and extend this a little bit. You notice as I keep hitting enter inside of this XML comment, it keeps throwing the forward slashes down to continue it. So now if I do an open lesson sign to open an XML tag, you see we get a list of things that we can place as XML tags.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty sophisticated. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So if you want to dig through the help file and read more about what you can do, because you can format the text that you put in there by doing things like para for paragraph tags. You can put code examples in there. There's a lot of really good tags that you can use. But that pretty much wraps it up. I just want to keep this nice and simple. Single line comments, multi-line comments, and XML documentation comments. Please start using these to document your code so that when you come back and look at your code later in time, you'll understand what it was you were doing. Or if you plan on posting your code to the internet for other people to look at, they can read your comments and get a quick idea of what it is you were doing. So with that, that is going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.